Calling this meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Item 1A, please join us and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Item 1B, approval of agenda/items for discussion.
I move that the agenda for the October 21st, 2024 regular meeting be approved.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Shaw. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Gogolewski.
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondeel?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, that motion passes. Item 1C, consent agenda.
I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda for the October 21st, 2024 regular meeting be approved.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mr. Costa. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Gogolewski?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondeel?
Yes.
A yes, that motion passes. Item 1D, Superintendent's report.
Thank you. Thank you for everybody being here tonight. We will start with our annual audit report. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Boyce.
Okay, good evening. I would like to welcome from Plant Moran, Jeff Higgins. He is our audit partner. Also with him is Renee Esper. And I'm sorry, you guys have changed titles since I've been there, but manager, senior manager, manager. Okay, perfect. Who are responsible for overseeing our audit, and they will walk you through the results.
Well, thank you and good evening. So again, my name is Jeff Higgins. With me is Renee Esper. So we're with Plant Moran. We are the district's independent CPA firm. So all districts in the state of Michigan are required to undergo an annual financial statement audit. So we're here to present the results of that audit for the district's year ended June 30th, 2024. So this first slide really gets to the crux of our opinion of the financial statements. So again, it's our job to provide an opinion or render an opinion on the district's financial statements. In order for us to render that opinion, we do have to complete an audit in accordance with auditing standards generally accepted in the United States of America, which requires us to perform various tests and procedures to go through and really scrub the books and the disclosures and the financial statements to really be able to render that opinion. So I'm pleased to report here tonight that we've rendered what's called an unmodified or a clean opinion on the district's financial statements. That'd be the highest level of assurance that we can provide on a set of financial statements. So all in all, a clean audit opinion for June 30th, 2024. And with that, we'll get into some of the financial highlights for the year.
Alrighty. So the first slide here is a summary of the district's general fund balance sheet, which is the main operating fund. The balance sheet represents a snapshot in time of the assets and liabilities of the district as of June 30th, 2024. So on the left, you have your assets there totaling about $26 million. And you can see that's primarily made up of cash and investments of $13.5 million and then $12.2 million in receivables, which that's primarily July and August state aid payments and federal payments received in July and August. And then you have your liabilities on the left of about $7 million, or on the right, and that's primarily accrued payroll for employees who are paid in July and August. And then your difference between your assets and your liability is your general fund balance of approximately $15 million. All right, and then this slide is looking at total revenue of the general fund. And it takes 2024 on the left and 2023 on the right. So you can see full fiscal year 2024 revenue of about $71.5 million. And as you can see, that's primarily state, which makes up about 79% of revenue, and that's driven by pupil count. And then your remaining relates to local sources, which would be property taxes, and then federal and interdistrict sources. And then this slide takes a look at total expenditures for fiscal year '24 and then compared to fiscal year '23 by function. So on the left there is fiscal year '24 of about $69.2 million in expenditures. And as you can see, instruction continues to be the main function year over year, representing about 59% of spend. And then this slide here is the same total expenditures for the district, 2024 and 2023. And this is by their object code. So you can see of the $69.2 million in 2024, salaries and benefits continues to make up the largest component at about 78%, consistent year over year as well.
Next, we have just a little bit of benchmarking data for us. We just looked at the expenditures. This slide compares for the general fund, the instructional expenditures as a ratio to the operating expenditures. So operating expenditures would be your total expenditures, less capital outlay and debt payments, which can be subject to significant fluctuations from year to year. So it's more of an annualized operating expenditure comparison. And then compares to some of your peer districts. So you can see for 23-24, that percentage for Hartland was about 62%. Which would be consistent with the prior year percentage. And you can see we have it also compared to similar sized districts. And all these comparisons are for 2022, 2023, which is the most recent year for which data is available. But similar sized districts would be districts between 5,000 and 10,000 students in the state, which there's about 40 of those in the state of Michigan. And then statewide, you can see the percentage in Livingston County. So this would show that Hartland really compares well to your peer districts on the amount of expenditures that are going into the instructional activities of the district. Next, we take a look at fund balance. So we talked a moment ago about fund balance when Renee mentioned the difference between your assets and your liabilities. So as we talked about, the assets of the district were about $26.3 million, liabilities of $7.3, so that difference of $18.9 would be the fund balance. Fund balance is an important metric that's used. It really helps identify and define the financial reserves of the district. It really helps the district deal with financial uncertainty. So if you have unplanned expenses or unexpected changes in enrollment, having adequate fund balance really helps you deal with those unexpected financial surprises that might happen during the year. So given the importance of fund balance, it's important to consider how much fund balance do we have and how is that assessed? Fund balance is often analyzed as a percentage of your expenditures. So if you take your fund balance which is roughly $19 million divided by your expenditures for the year, about $69 million, that gives you a percentage of about 27.5%. You can see for the last several years, your percentage where you've been. So in 2020, it was at 13.8, and then 24.6 and 21 and so forth. And then compares that to the state average. You can see the state average last year was just under 22% as of June 30th, 2023. So for several years, the district was actually a little bit below that state average. Hartland, like many districts in the state, most districts in the state had a pretty significant increase in fund balance during the COVID years as there were significant resources injected into the educational programs around the country. So that really helped build those financial reserves. And now you can see for the last couple of years, you've been just at or slightly above that state average percentage. So again, a good, healthy fund balance. The district has really done a nice job of really maintaining and protecting its financial reserves and ensuring that you have the fund balance and resources necessary to deal with any future unexpected surprises that might be out there. And one of those unexpected planning items is always the pupil count. So we talked about the majority of the revenue really comes from the enrollment of the district. This trend line here, there's the bars represent Hartland's employment for the last several years, and that red line represents statewide employment. So statewide enrollment certainly throughout Michigan has been declining for the last several years, and Hartland has sort of experienced a similar decline, although not to the degree that the state enrollment has declined. But again, this just represents one of the many challenges that districts in the state face, since the majority of their revenue, again, is through the state allocated foundation allowance, and you really have no control over that number other than trying to just manage enrollment. And so when you have a declining enrollment, it just creates challenges to really maintain those, the same educational program when you have less resources coming in. So again, that's where that fund balance helps deal with those types of challenges. And that completes our summary for the year ended June 30th, 2024.
Any questions from the team? And just of note, the Finance Committee did just do a deep dive with them on some of the details on the various reports and how they take a look at, one subset of money versus another. There's some that athletics rolls up, some that athletics does not roll up. One area in particular that I would like to call out, just from a transparency standpoint for the public, because it's probably not known, is when we, in our statement of net position, you'll see a negative about $58 million balance, and that's actually the district share of the unfunded MIPSR plan, and we still have to report that as a liability. So I just want to call that out, and I can dig into the report we have with anyone that's interested, but that's a voluntary gift from the state.
I do have a question. If you can explain the general fund balance from 2020 to 2024, that change, the significant difference.
Yeah, so our fund balance has been growing over time, like Jeff had mentioned, because of these significant one-time federal dollars that have been kind of infused into the system.
So wouldn't it be
And so-
back here, though, if that's?
No,
in
because-
2020, that would be the COVID stuff, right?
Not all the money came in 2020.
Oh.
It started actually flowing in 2021.
Okay.
And then continued to flow throughout the years. We still had COVID money left in 2024. And interestingly enough, as we shift from, having significant federal resources from that time, the state has started putting a lot of one-time dollars on out of that bucket. And so that's kind of contributed to that as well, one-time dollars from them. And I believe it's probably because of their federal money. So,
So my question is, like, when we do get that cash infusion,
yep.
is there anything connected to it that we have to do, or so there are strings attached?
Yes. Yep.
So did when we, in 2022, was lower, did we kind of put it off to the side, not accept it, and then as time went on, we decided to accept it?
There's a combination of that. There's multiple grants over these years. I want to say combined from 2021 to 2024, there's about $15 million that we got as a result of that, all with different spending requirements, all with different strings attached, so you want to say, all with different ways you could spend it. So is there something, I know everybody kind of gets involved in this, is there something that I can see that shows like different grants? Mm-hmm.
Is that somewhere in a?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I don't know if it's online, I'm just asking because I'm looking at this right now.
Yeah, no, I have it all tracked by,
Okay.
by
And I know
grant,
you
by
do,
year.
yeah. I trust
all
what you're
that
doing.
stuff.
I just want to see what the grants and what strings are attached and kind of what we've accepted with this, with the grants.
Okay.
That's kind of what I want to see. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Sorry, just have a question on the enrollment slide. So I'm seeing, I thought I heard, but maybe I misheard. It sounded like you thought Hartland was doing better than the statewide average, but if I crunch these numbers real quick, I'm seeing we're down from 2020 to 2025 about 8% versus a statewide, which is about 5%. Did I do that incorrectly?
So I have to go back and look at the percentages, but yeah, so the state, it's generally about a 10,000 student drop. There was that big drop in 2021 to 2022 where they lost 50,000 students, and there was a big concern of where did those students go. But I think if you look at kind of the longer term 20-year trend line, the state enrollment has been down more than the Hartland enrollment declines have been down. So again, we have this 5-year period here. I haven't crunched the numbers for the 5 years. If you look at over a longer term period of time, there's been just a steady decline for several years at the state level of students enrolled in public schools in Michigan, just changing demographics and other reasons.
Do you have that broken down by county? I know you don't on this slide, but
I'm sure it's available by county. I don't have it at my fingertips, but
Okay.
yes, I would So Livingston County, I mean, so yes, those numbers should be available by county because the state does go through and allocate district by district and basically like ISD, and county by county.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question along the lines of student population. Is there anything that you have or are aware of that gives a fairly good professional guesstimate in terms of trends with lower enrollment? Is there somewhere where you think that Hartland may be 5 years from now, or where the state might be? Anything like that?
So I don't have that information. Certainly there are ways to do enrollment projections, and there's obviously a lot of factors that go into that, and housing starts and the demographics of the local county. So I don't have that for Hartland, but certainly that data is out there, and it's just a matter of going through and accumulating the data and making those forecasts.
Just, Glenn, so you know, we use Stanford projections. Stanford works with us every year on projecting the next 3 to 5 years out. So we use them, and we use the high, medium, or low. We've been using the high loss, right? And so while we projected this year to have a larger loss than we actually had, which we actually, because we developed our budget over the high loss, we actually ended up in good shape because we went with the high and didn't hit that mark. So we do have a company that helps us do that.
Have you seen anything that shows a projection for, let's say, the state of Michigan over the next several years? Or is there going to be a continued decline by several digits?
So Sanford does projections for Hartland itself, but bases those projections on multiple factors, and statewide enrollment is one of those things that they're looking at. There's actually a pretty good comprehensive document out there on the state of Michigan's website that talks about population as a whole and the reasons for what the population looks like and what it's expected to do. That report does indicate that we expect to see a decline in population in the state of Michigan as a whole in the foreseeable future. And there, interestingly enough, most of that change is going to be dependent on migration in or out, because the birth rates and the aging population is not what's helping Michigan. And I'm happy to share that document with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I do want to just give Rachel kudos. They had said Rachel runs one of the cleanest shops that they've seen from a business operations and just from having everything aligned and organized and very well allocated. So thank you so much, Rachel. We are very lucky to have you. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Jeff and Renee. We appreciate all your hard work this year. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Next, we have Melissa Frazier, principal at Lakes Elementary, do a presentation on happenings at Lakes.
Thank you. I wasn't expecting the applause. Good evening, and thank you for giving me a few minutes. We all know that our number one priority is student achievement, and on any given day, you will see our teachers and students learning and working together. But what really makes a school experience memorable for kids are the extras. So today I wanted to just share some of the extras that are continuing at Lakes or new this year. Is it just spacebar? Okay, thank you. So I spoke of our PTO last year, but it bears repeating. We have a wonderfully dedicated group of parent leaders that make so many of our extras at Lakes possible. They not only raise funds so that we can have assemblies and popcorn days and special events in March's Reading Month, but they also organize events that connect our school community, like movie nights. This year we're having a glow night. We have a family fun fest every spring. Important to note is the objective of our PTO. Our PTO board works collaboratively with the principal to determine the best ways to raise funds and then how to spend those funds. So it really is all about building community and having a positive impact on every student in the building. So just some photos of PTO funds in action at Lakes. We just had a very successful fun run where we met our fundraising goal and then had this mystery balloon popping assembly, which you can see there. So you see one of our movie nights, a book fair that gets organized and facilitated, and some of our volunteers at work. So I'm super excited to share that this year Lakes has taken a page from the Round School playbook, and we have begun our own Watchdogs program. We currently have 19 dads that have either volunteered or signed up to volunteer in the coming weeks. It's been a huge success. It's been a very positive experience, not only for the kids who say, oh, who's our watchdog today, but for the dads too. So we are excited to continue to build our school community with this program. So there are just some photos of our watchdogs in action. And the objective really is just to provide that positive role model in the school setting where it's, very female dominant. So they do all sorts of things and just kind of help out, extra set of eyes and ears around the building. We have our Watchdogs Hall of Fame where students and their dads get their picture up. And then our year-long calendar, in the month of October, we have a watchdog that has either been or will be in the building every single school day. So it's been a pretty cool thing. And we're starting to get our regulars that are there once a week. We continue to operate a student-run branch of the LOC Credit Union at Lakes, and I spoke of this last year too, but I think this is one of the neatest things that we do. The branch is open once a month, and it operates just like a regular credit union branch. So any student in the building can open an account, they can make deposits on a monthly basis, and then they can check their account balances. So we have 2 teams of 4th grade leaders that went through an application process and an interview process to secure different positions at the branch. So those are just some updated photos. And if you've never seen just the info video, there's a link there to watch the spiel. Hartland operates a highly capable program across the district. And at Lakes, we're fortunate enough to extend our highly capable group outside of the classroom as well. We have 2 amazing parent volunteers that facilitate bi-monthly meetings with our highly capable 3rd and 4th graders. They participate in many areas of learning really based on student interest. So this year, students indicated they're interested in learning about culinary arts, law, becoming an author, entrepreneurship, veterinary medicine, landscape design, law enforcement, and then parents have also submitted other ideas for them to learn during their time together. We're lucky enough to be able to tap into a lot of our parent expertise, and they come in and share and participate as guest speakers, and students work together and just on various activities, problem solving and creating things together as well. So it's a pretty cool thing. Just a couple photos. So one of our focuses at Lakes this year is taking time and opportunities to celebrate our success. So student achievement and goal attainment are things to be recognized and built upon constantly. Our classroom teachers celebrate academic success in their classes, and then here are just a few ways that we showcase student achievement in our common spaces in the building. So we pretty much have an art show going year-round. Mrs. Rossano does such amazing work with the kids in art class, and she is constantly taking things down and putting new things up. Our Lakes Fitness Wall of Fame, our Grammy Wall of Fame to celebrate students' work and achievement in physical fitness and in music. Mr. Parker, our new STEM teacher this year, is keeping competition alive and posting results of different things that they're doing in STEM class. So there's a photo of boat race results up there on the windows. And then we have a kindness tree at Lakes where we recognize and celebrate students showing just acts of kindness around the building. So thank you for your time tonight. We're looking forward to a very successful remaining school year. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
No questions for me, but Mrs. Frazier, I just want to say, as a Lakes parent for 10 years, thank you for continuing so many of these great traditions. I know at least for our students, right? Well, for parents, student achievement is the most important. But for our kids, movie nights and fun runs, when those moments become memories for our kids, that's what they remember from elementary school.
Absolutely.
So thank you for doing all of that and all of these extra things that I know take up a lot of time and resources, but how important it is for our students and our families to have these memories. Thank you.
Yeah, well, it is certainly a joy, and that's where a lot of the relationships get built, so.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I think you're doing a great job. I love the parent, bringing the parents into the school. It's one of my favorite parts, so good job on that as well. And the dogs, like, that's amazing. I have a neighbor that does that at Round, and he loves it, so.
Yeah, they're great.
Good
It's
job.
awesome. A lot of days they look pretty tired by then.
Do they? But I'm sure she said this, it's good to bring the men in, right? Like,
Awesome,
because
yeah.
it's very dominant in the female world, yeah.
Sure, yeah.
So good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's stellar that you do the credit union thing this early and not wait until high school or middle school. So that's very good.
Thanks. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. All right, and lastly, just thank you to our high school staff. What a great homecoming week. And I know that it was played out throughout the district and everybody was involved, but culminating in the parade, in the homecoming, and the dance went successfully. So I know as a high school principal, that's a really tough week. So I want to thank our high school staff for your dedication to our kids, and they could have a good time with that. So thank you. So ends the superintendent's report.
All right, we're on to item 1E, call to the public. Speakers are asked to express themselves in a civil manner with due respect for the dignity and privacy of others who may be affected by your comments. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. And I will wave our handy dandy yellow folder when you're at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. First, we have Mary Kaffmeyer.
Hello. Sorry, I ran out of printer ink today. I've got to do this on my phone. My name is Mary Kaffmeyer, and I've lived in the Hartland area for 24 years. I had 2 sons graduate from Hartland High School in 2012 and 2017. Because of their stellar education here, they were both accepted into the College of Engineering at the University of Michigan, obtained bachelor's and master's degrees in 5 years, and are now both thriving in their respective careers, due in large part to the education they received here. I just want to compliment the staff for their dedication and expertise. Well, that was 12 and 7 years ago. Fast forward to the present. Hartland High School has only gotten better. As I'm sure everyone in this room already knows, Hartland schools are currently ranked in the top 10% of schools in Michigan and in the top 13% of high schools nationwide. They rank 12th in the state for MSTEP and PSAT. All I can say is, wow, you are obviously doing something right. A thriving school system with a thriving school board helps the community thrive. And a thriving community translates into thriving property values. Please continue to work together and keep up the excellent work. Thank you.
Rebecca Fedewa.
I did have printer ink, but I still am blind as a bat. So great minds think alike, and I have similar emotions to share with you all, thoughts to share with you all. And building on what we heard from the auditors and from the principal at Lakes, just want to say that I'm just really proud to be a part of this community and the great work that you all are doing. I skipped over the part that, hi, my name is Rebecca Fedewa. I am a resident of Hartland Township. I have a son at Farms Intermediate School, and we have lived in the community for about 11 years now. Like I said, I wanted to commend the school board, the superintendent, all of our administrators, teachers, our parapros, our PTO leaders, and all the rest of the staff at the Hartland schools for providing our students with such an excellent education. I'm sure all of my fellow residents recognize how outstanding our schools are and that we are a great path towards further excellence. My hope is that we can continue down this path long into the future. Of course, my opinion doesn't matter that much, so I much like Mary, I gathered some stats that have already been shared with the district over the last several months. Thank you, Mr. Hughes, for sharing all of this great news. I'm just really so proud that our district is able to demonstrate this degree of excellence. So well done to all of you. So just a few of those achievements, and I think it's niche school district ratings. The school district made a jump from being ranked number 52 to number 47 this year. This is out of 539 school districts, which puts Hartland in the top 8%. That is amazing. The athletic programs at Hartland are ranked number 8 out of 482 districts, which is the top 2%. I know I'm telling you all things that you already know, but I think it just bears repeating because this is great stuff. The 2024 AP School Honor Roll, Hartland is a bronze member in the overall honor roll and scored a silver in 2 of the 3 other reporting areas. There's a lot of different stats that go with that, but the fact that 6% of our seniors took 5 or more AP exams, I only managed to take 2 back in my day, and that was difficult. So that's just outstanding. In the MSTEP and PSAT statistics, Hartland schools have defied the trends of schools not performing at pre-pandemic levels. Overall, our testing in 3rd to 10th grade on all subjects, Hartland ranked number 12 in the state, which again is top 2%. I really think that's something that we should be proud of and celebrate. So well done to all of you working together as a board. We had a great high school girls robotics team that have won 2 years in a row and have never, they beat 29 teams from across the state. And my son, who plays 3 different sports in Hartland, would be mad at me if I didn't mention the youth sports and just how great our athletics are, top tier across the state and across the range of teams and sports. Again, the clean audit really shows how great you all are doing, especially over here. So thank you very much for your hard work, and I just hope that our residents recognize that we're on a great path and we need to keep building on that.
Thank you. Len Patilla. Len? I'm good. Okay. Jeff Scott.
Good evening. My name's Jeff Scott. I have 3 students in the district, and I'm running for the 2-year term for the school board. It's been quite a month. At last month's meeting, 4 of you, at the recommendation of Superintendent Hughes, decided to cede all local control and autonomy of our district to the Federal Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., and to the Great Lakes Equity Center in Indianapolis, Indiana. And you agreed to start indoctrinating students in this district with racist, hateful DEI trainings. Then, at the end of the month, Mr. Hughes held a DEI DOJ question and answer forum. I was there with a bunch of other angry parents, and I can tell you there were very few questions answered. But there were 3 major takeaways from that event. Number 1, after some heated back and forth between Mr. Hughes, Mr. Minsker, myself, and some other folks in the room, they finally admitted that the district was going to be teaching DEI to every student in the district, from the seniors at the high school all the way down to the 4-year-old junior kindergartners as they learn shapes, letters, and colors. That's pretty appalling. Number 2, Mr. Hughes announced that Ms. Gregory is no longer the DEI czar, and that role has been handed over to Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum, Mr. David Minsker. Now, I think everybody should think about that for a moment. That the man in charge of all district curriculum is now also in charge of all district DEI and DEI trainings. Unless parents and citizens push back, we can expect to see DEI and CRT in its way into curriculum across the district. Why else would the head of curriculum also be the DEI czar? And third, and probably the scariest takeaway, was a comment made by Mr. Hughes repeatedly that the DEI training would have little to no cost to Hartland and to the taxpayers because it was funded by the Great Lakes Equity Center through what they call a Tier 3 Systemic Equity Partnership. No cost. Well, Mr. Hughes, how foolish must you be to think there is no cost to something provided to this district for free? For the cost is our children. You have sold out our children to far off, far left entities who want to spread their woke ideologies. They are going to spread hate, racism, and divisiveness through this district, all under the guise of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And they do not represent the best interest of our students right here in Hartland.
Julie Tucker.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone, for sitting up here. I appreciate your dedication to our school district. First, I just want to say the Hartland Homecoming Parade was amazing last month. Chief Danke said that we probably had twice as many people attending as we did the year prior, so great for our school. The students who helped organize it, the ones who participated, everybody was so wonderful. I feel very fortunate and I'm thankful for the wonderful student leaders that I got to work with, and I'm very proud of everything that they put in to make this parade amazing, and it's going to keep on growing. I'm Julie Tucker. I'm currently running for the 2-year term for Hartland Board of Education. What I actually wanted to bring up today was an issue that was brought to the board last meeting regarding improper use of Farms PTO funds. If elected as a board member, it will be my priority to make sure that Hartland parents know the truth and the facts. So after the meeting last month, I reached out to Principal Britsky to ask her about the Farms PTO funds. Allegations had indicated that the school district did not provide and does not provide enough Chromebooks for students. Mrs. Britsky confirmed that the district provides exactly what the students need. However, Farms PTO wanted to provide more, so this was more of a want than a need. It ended up being an agenda item on the PTO board on the meeting, and it was voted and also passed. Another allegation was that Farms PTO funds were being misused for a community Hartland art walk. Ms. Britsky verified that this was never an agenda item on the PTO until after the board meeting. Once then, it was put on the agenda, it was voted and also passed. 8 of the 64 featured art in the Hartland Art Walk were Hartland Farm students. And isn't it great that a PTO is going to support the students who are achieving things in our community? And just like Mrs. Frazier said, with all the lakes PTO is building the community. My intent is not to discredit anyone. My intent is to provide the truth to Hartland. I'm not an angry parent. I'm a proud parent of our school district and all of our accomplishments. I don't feel anyone, especially somebody running for the board, should be coming up and dirting the name of our Hartland schools. We should be bringing solutions, not issues. I encourage Hartland voters to find the truth and not be manipulated by the lies that have been door knocked and the threats to our business owners. If you want your future board to be a board that works together respectfully for the best interests of our schools, I highly encourage to vote for those you feel will honor Hartland. Election day is in 2 weeks. I ask everyone, for the purpose of Hartland, please be respectful to each other. We may not agree with everything, but we are one community. Please, for our students, display yourself respectfully to each other, just as we would want our children to be respectful to others. Thank you.
Jeff Campbell.
Thank you for the time. My name is Jeff Campbell. I'm a candidate for the school board. No introduction. I think we're kind of past that because I'm sure everyone's done their research as we near November 5th and get ready for the election. I wanted to speak today just to clear up a little bit some things about myself, give the opportunity to hear my position on some takes that are on social media, things that have been asked about me in the community, what I met and spoke with members at social gatherings. One of the things is signs. It's been posted out there that our signs running for school board are next to Democratic signs. I love that. Our supporters also put out that our signs are next to Republican candidate signs, and I love that as well. So pardon me if I'm running for a nonpartisan position on the school board and I'm trying to consider the values of everyone in our community. I don't care if it's race, political affiliation, religion. I'm here to represent everybody that's in the community because that's what makes us up. I look forward to that opportunity. Because I couldn't imagine if I'm running one party affiliation. I'm not going to paint the town any one color. That's not going to happen. I want to represent all of us. I'm lucky enough to be up here on the school board. And much like working with the community, I also want to work with the schools. A reflection of that is my participation with the schools when they did a question and answer. And I was.
Can you address the board, please?
Yes, I
Thank you.
apologize. Thank you, sir. Board, I'm very proud to have their endorsement. I have that, and I know it's just the union that gives that recommendation to the teachers, but that's very fortunate, and I'm very proud to have that. History of me, I'm the son of a very hardworking mother and a very hardworking father. My dad's a retired teacher of 37 years, so I know the demand that's on the teachers. My sister is a current teacher, and I know the demand that's on them as well currently. So I very much wanted to support them and do that from a board position, if I'm fortunate enough to do so. Yes, I appreciate the publicity. I was encouraged to run for the school board by administrators. Two, I will not hide from that. I'm very proud of that because I respect those individuals. But there's no grooming here. There's none of that taking place. I turned down the first opportunity so that I could research this a little bit more and prepare for this. And I'm ready now. I'm dedicated. Thank you very much. I'm excited for the opportunity to be on the board for 6 years. For myself, to represent myself, my values, my wife's values, our 3 daughters, everyone in the community, and their children as well. I'd like to thank the service of Ms. Blondeel, Mr. Costa, for your dedication that you've had on the board. When you're at the polls November 5th, please consider the special education millage. It'll bring $1.5 million to our district. If you'd like to look up a little bit about that, livingstonesa.org and campbellshawtucker.com if you'd like to know a little bit more about us.
Mr. Campbell, can you wrap it up?
Thank you.
Alex Yarber.
Thank you. Alex Yarber. I'm a 17-year resident of Hartland. Got 3 kids in the schools. Jeff Scott stole a little bit of my thunder, so I just want to talk a little bit about some issues around that topic. And just in case anyone hasn't noticed, the current administration in control in this country is trying to take us down a communist road. And that's not the right way to go. And what I see with this agreement with the Department of Justice is more of that. If you think the Department of Justice is your friend, you're totally wrong. They're the same Department of Justice that called parents who spoke at school board meetings domestic terrorists. Okay, I guess that's me. This is the same Department of Justice that's been going after President Trump with lawfare. It's the same Department of Justice that just last week is suing the state of Virginia because they want to prevent illegal aliens from voting in their election. There's a bunch of communists at the Department of Justice, and we don't want them in our school. And I am so incensed about this. You basically have labeled every student in this district as a racist, and they're not. And I resent that. And how you can so glibly just pass it off as no big deal really just bothers me. And you shouldn't be surprised that people are upset. This is not going to stop. We're going to conduct a district-wide campaign for kids to opt out of this indoctrination. They should be focusing on reading and writing and arithmetic, not learning about how their whiteness is systemic racism. That is wrong. How is that not racist? We're living in la-la land. This is going to be known as the dumb ages. And you were a member of the board at the time. And I want to remind the public of the 4 board members that voted for this agreement: Cindy Shaw, Megan Glayback, Kristen, and Chris. Yep, Chris will be gone. Megan, you're going to be around, but we'll be recalling you. Cindy, do not vote for Cindy. She wants racism to be preached against our kids. That's disgusting. You should be ashamed.
Angela Yarber.
Good evening. I'm Angela Yarber, Alex's wife, mom of 3, a public school teacher in another district, and I've been teaching for over 25 years in public and private schools, so I'm very aware of what teachers do. I'm also a Hartland School Board candidate. As I've been meeting with members of the community, voters have expressed dismay at all of the drama surrounding the district. What's happened to Hartland, they ask. This drama could have been avoided had the superintendent and board treated the tax-paying community with respect and simply communicated clearly. Hartland Schools has suffered because of a lack of transparency. Clarity regarding the recently adopted partnership with the Great Lakes Equity Center to provide DEI and anti-racism training is missing. Info on GLEC's website is very alarming. The website says that those who are white, non-disabled, heterosexual, and U.S. born are oppressors. No wonder people are concerned. This is wrong and a terrible message to teach our Hartland students as young as 4 years old. Colleges and corporations have been abandoning DEI because it doesn't work. Our Hartland students and staff deserve progress, not poor practices made out of fear. And it's unacceptable that what should have been handled locally is now being handled by the federal government. The public deserves more explanation about this, more than a half-hour Q&A coffee hour.
Ella Nikitin.
You know, I think the previous comments really show that some people really need to learn what communism actually is. I encourage you to Google Decree 770. That's the kind of, and see what that did to Romania. This is the kind of future the right wants. Anyways, that's not why I'm here to talk. So there are certain people that are on the board, certain newcomers, and some people running who want to claim that there is no systemic racism. There's no history to claim that there is no history of systemic racism in Hartland. So let me tell you a story about this school district and specifically a previous administration. So many years ago, the MTA up in Flint, they run city buses in Flint, approached a previous administration of this district and asked, to be able to use the place that we are at right now as a bus stop to have a public transit link between Hartland and Flint. That previous administration rejected them, citing concerns of people from Flint coming to Hartland. And you want to tell me that there is no history of systemic racism in Hartland? For the last 20 years, business owners have rejected Flint's offers to bring public transit from Flint at no cost to us. People, like to complain about traffic. We had an opportunity to alleviate that 20 years ago. I can only hope that this opportunity gets taken now in our community. Thank you.
Item 1F, committee and building reports. Mr. Gogolewski, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, thank you, Megan. Last month, I had the chance to meet with the legacy principal, Nicole Connolly. And one thing that I do want to kind of repeat, we've heard over time how legacy sometimes gets, well, not ignored intentionally, but kind of falls off the radar of a lot of folks. And unfortunately, legacy does not have an active PTO the way the other schools do, but they still have needs. And earlier this month, Legacy put out a little flyer talking about stocking the food pantry. So if you're into that and you want to give some donations and what have you, don't forget about Legacy. Those students are very important and sometimes have situations that really require some additional goods and funding. So please remember Legacy in your charitable contributions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Shaw.
Thank you. Last week, I visited farms again and had a chance to go to one of the highly capable events that was happening, just like Mrs. Frazier talked about at Lakes. Parent volunteers come in and run that highly capable group. We got to walk into chaos, I guess it was. They had 5 minutes to try to build a house that could withstand hurricane winds, which was really just a box fan that had five settings on it. But it was just fun to see the ideas and them working together. And then when it went up against that fan, to see what home survived and which one fell off into the ocean. So again, those extra things that parents can come in and do, and some of those things that might take kids out of a classroom for an hour, how important those things are for the experiences that our kids have in our buildings, just to, collaborate, to meet new friends, to work on something that they wouldn't have a chance to do otherwise. So it's awesome to see that administration is making sure that those moments are happening in our building too. Last thing I have too is I just wanted to say how awesome the homecoming parade was again. If it could have been 20 degrees cooler, maybe that would have been better. But Julie Tucker and all of her work she's done the last couple of years, and involving our high school students this year, which is great. Because again, if we want this to continue to be something that we do in Hartland, our students have to be the ones to buy in to make that homecoming parade go. So just another great thing that we have here in Hartland in our community. So that's it.
Coleman?
Thank you. There's no committee reports for me. I don't think I don't think any of my committees have met since the last meeting, but I have been able to set up my monthly meetings, my visits at both Round and Creekside. At my last visit at Creekside, I was able to assist the principal for the day in his rounds of the building. So it was very entertaining. He was quite a great principal. It was a student who had won this for the day, and it was a lot of fun. He has a lot of charisma, that one. And then at Round, I was able to stop by and see some of their fun run, which was, of course, it's always a good time watching kids run around and have a blast. And it was beautiful weather for that as well. So that always makes for a good day. So I'm looking forward to seeing those students at those buildings more often as the year goes on. And also, I just wanted to say thank you to James and your team for putting on a great homecoming game. Thank you to everybody who was involved with the parade. It was a great weekend. Way too much football starting Thursday with freshman games for me, but it was a lot of fun. Great times. Thank you.
Mr. Keller?
All right. I do not have a building report this time. I had intentions on going to the lock-in, but I had some other commitments come up that prevented me from doing so. But I will be there for sure before the next meeting. The only thing I wanted to really highlight, which we've heard a few times already today, was the Finance Committee. We had a meeting this afternoon, this evening, and as you heard earlier, it was an unmodified opinion, which is the highest possible rating. So want to congratulate Rachel and the team for all the hard work you put into having a successful business operation. And in fact, I think in the meeting, if I got my quote correctly, they said that you have a very competent business office. So great job to you guys. So ends my report.
Thank you. Mr. Costa.
Yeah, so, I mean, several of you have stolen my high school report. I just want to mention, I am the high school liaison. You're like, I mean, first off, from Mrs. Tucker, getting out there talking about the parade, which thank you, by the way, for spearheading all that. That's fantastic, too. Mr. Hughes and all of you. Yeah, no, I did have a conversation with Mr. Fitzgerald up at the high school. He said the whole week was great. Kids were having tons of fun, which is what it's about, because it is about community. I mean, it goes beyond the high school. So I thought that was great. He said things are going well as far as the students. And then I just want to do a little shout out to our high school cross-country team. They have their regional meet coming up, so good luck to Coach Gutteridge and all the runners. And then I'm all set.
Mrs. Blondell?
I don't have a building report, but I'm just so grateful that everybody put on such an awesome homecoming parade and dance and game and everything. So, I mean, that's wonderful to hear. We had our own, so I wasn't able to attend, but from everybody's compliments, I'm grateful for that. I am going to say something because I want to. There's been a lot of people coming up here talking about the DOJ and racism. Mr. Nikitin came up here and was claiming that we're racist and this and that. I don't appreciate that. We're not racist. Our children are not racist. I'm very disappointed that we did sign the contract. I'm not on social media, but I am going to address this because I feel like it's important. I too feel that it's a negative hit to the district, and I don't support it at all. But I also don't appreciate some people who are running for office coming up here and claiming that we are a racist district. I think it's awful, and I hope you don't win. So anyways, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Couple of things. I'm going to highlight Village first. They had their annual fun run. It raised well over $33,000, which was a stretch goal for Village. So those of you who don't...
35, she said.
35. All right. Those of you who don't know, Mr. Rec is actually a very good sport when it comes to our fun run. So not only on the day of did every student participating get to silly string him, he's probably still recovering from those burns of silly string. He also sleeps on the roof of our school as a means of getting our students to reach their goals. And so Mr. Rec will be sleeping on the roof, and he does sleep on the roof the entire night. It's really great for kids. They bring him snacks. He probably has an overload of candy. We hope that this year maybe he'll get one of these 70-degree days. But I do just want to shout out because it is a huge undertaking. I know all of our elementaries do a fun run, but it's always nice to see. And the Village PTO coordinated matching shirts for each class, and it was just a really great event. They transitioned their fun run from actually the spring to the fall again this year, which I think raised more than they ever imagined, and just huge shout out to them. The second thing is Village did also participate in some of the Hartland Art Walk in the scholarship opportunity to give to that, and we're able to vote for our own children as well, Village kids, students that were participated in the Art Walk. And so I know one Village kiddo is displayed right at the Big Red House in the Village, and so it was just a really cool opportunity to highlight those folks, and it's just Village is a great place to be, and I'm sad that as a parent, this is my last year. I do want to call out really quickly, obviously there will be some transitions on the board, but as it pertains to the DOJ agreement, Mr. Gogoleski and Mrs. Coleman will actually be representing the board in any of the training and subsequent design of any materials that might be established. And so I do want to call that out because all of this will be funneled through our DEI committee, which we're obviously going to have to switch around some membership just due to some changes. We want some consistent participation. But those two will we'll head down with our administration, our teachers, and be a part of that journey as well. So I did want to call that out. And Greg covered Finance Committee, so I think we're good there. If anyone wants to deep dive into any of these reports that they reviewed with us in detail, happy to do that. And that so ends my report. We're going to go on to item 2A, out of the country trip.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approves the trip to Ecuador in 2026 as presented.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, supported by Mr. Costa. Any discussion?
I had already pointed this out to Renee, so she knows, but it's on our copy of the agenda, and I think on the minutes from the last meeting, it said out of county instead of out of country, so she's going to make that correction.
Ecuador is very far out of our county. Any additional discussion? Mr. Gogolewski?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondil?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, that motion passes. Item 2B, 24-25 HCS district goals.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the board president, approves the 2024-25 district goals as presented.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mr. Costa. Any discussion? I do want to just point out for the team that obviously, as the DEI committee sees fit, we might have to pivot some of the goals just around that work. But I will leave it to my colleagues that sit on that committee to make any recommendations to the board if we need to make any mid-year pivots come December, January area. Hearing no further discussion, Mr. Gogolewski. Go ahead.
No, just a quick comment. I'm just very happy to hear in the setting of goals, we have some actual quantitative goals here that are, I think it's a very good start. And I think as time goes on, there's definitely things that we can tweak, and we can, at least with these, form a few baselines and make improvements upon them next year. So I'm happy to see that.
Thank you. Mr. Gogolewski?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondil?
Yes.
I'm a yes, that motion passes. Item 2C, superintendent contract.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the board president, approves the superintendent contract as presented.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Costa, support by Mrs. Coleman. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit to, I think, what was discussed a little bit last month for this particular item. I appreciate, Megan, you getting some legal clarification, and I guess for those that weren't here, hadn't seen the previous meeting, I guess the question sort of surrounded it's section 4A of the contract that previously stated that we needed to vote if we wanted to extend by March 30th, and I had some questions kind of around the validity of that, just kind of maintaining the spirit of the contract. And just to clarify, based on what the legal opinion that we received is, essentially the assessment was correct in that in order to extend the contract, we did need to do it by March 30th. However, since we have now graduated to the next school year, we still have by March of 2025, in essence, to renew the contract. So essentially, the way I understand it from Thrun is that we've renewed this contract kind of 6 months early, as opposed to waiting until March to do it. So I know that's going to be different with the new contract because it does now call out something that's more relevant to our time frame, which is July. But I just wanted to make sure the public's aware of that. And that's, I guess, all I wanted to kind of highlight. So thanks.
And I do want to point out, and members of the board received that crosswalk that I did, but we had some components, salary components in policy, salary components in contract, and it made it incredibly difficult to understand what all of the components were. So we pulled all of them forward so that it's transparent, it's up front. Nothing is necessarily it could be in policy, but it's all represented now here. Again, didn't change any of the terms, carried those over, provided that crosswalk. Greg did point something out, HRIS, Human Resources Information System, for those of you that didn't catch that from where we pulled the salary. So I just want to be upfront with that. He, in the automotive world, that's not terminology that he uses. So just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, so I feel like, well, Mr. Costa and I shouldn't be voting on a contract when we're not going to be sitting here, so that's going to dictate the vote.
Okay.
The other,
Because the new board, sorry, I should have clarified, because a new board is coming in, and I just feel like it wouldn't be my role at this moment.
Well,
Any further discussion?
I was just
Yeah.
going to say, oh, sorry, Glenn, did you want to go?
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm just, well, I am going to participate in the vote because I'm
gonna
up here.
participate.
Okay, I just want to make sure you were going to vote. But having this, and I know Mrs. Shaw mentioned at the last meeting, we had conversation, having a superintendent around for several years shows stability, and it shows there are positives from administration to teachers to student growth. So the fact that we can secure Mr. Hughes and keep him around for more years, I think is important, because you look at all these other districts that superintendents are coming and going, and then you have principals coming and going, and teachers coming and going, and everybody knows kids want stability, adults want stability too. So I think it's important that we have that here in Hartland. That's all.
Mr. Gogolewski?
Just to chime in, the one thing about this contract in the very first paragraph, it talks about the board employs administrator for 4 years, and I think 3 years is stable enough. And I even mentioned this prior in another meeting, that I really can't look at a contract that's more than 3 years. It's only fair to the teachers, to the admin, and the other employees of the district. So I cannot buy into the 4-year concept.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Gogolewski?
No.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
No.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondeel?
No.
And I'm a yes, that motion passes. Item 2D, Hartland Consolidated School Administrators Association Master Agreement.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent and the assistant superintendent of personnel, approves the HCS Administrators Association Master Agreement as presented.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Shaw. Discussion?
Yeah, I can start. So with the contract, I think we've, again, keep beating a dead horse here, but the district's doing very well financially. We want to obviously keep the district, on that right trajectory and, maintain viability for all the teachers, the students, and the rest of the staff. I think, kind of going through the contract, and I appreciate Mr. Hughes sitting down with me to kind of walk through a lot of the questions that I had. So I can kind of spare the rest of the team the bulk of them. But one thing that kind of stood out rather to me was that nowhere in this contract do we have anything that would allow the district to sort of reopen the discussion of contract in the event of an unforeseen financial issue. And I guess, as my role as the treasurer, and also kind of in the spirit of how we already have in the teachers' contracts, we have stuff that talks about maintaining, I think it's called the formula, if I'm not mistaken, which takes into consideration the fund balance, academic outcomes, things like that. And I didn't see that in here. And so while I may be okay with most of the items in here, I think that's a very important piece that was overlooked or just not included in this contract. So for me, I would like to see the team go back and talk through that.
And Mr. Keller and I had a discussion last week And I did reach out to some of the team to understand, without being at the table, it's hard to understand what concessions are made, what concessions are not made, because although we read it as it is today, I think that there was concessions made in other arenas around where they landed today. Obviously, they came with an ask, that ask is negotiated, and so I trust that those processes are in place. I will say that, Greg, I think your comment to me was certainly in that 3-year where we see the fund balance kind of starting to dip off, and Rachel keeps us well apprised of that. It looks like we would be renegotiating prior to that time anyways, and perhaps that's something that we can push forward. But this was negotiated in good faith, where there was concessions made that I think are important to recognize.
If I can just make a comment, just to add to Mr. Keller's concern. We've just heard from our accounting team that state of Michigan, Hartland, enrollment is declining, and there may be sooner than later some very tough decisions that may need to be made. And to not have that ability to reopen something, I think, is a bit of concern. The one thing I don't want, because I know this is going to get turned around. A few months back, we voted on a raise for our administrative team, and everyone up here is very happy with our administrative team, and we want to support the administrative team. But there are some issues within a contract that may need to be ironed out a little bit more than what they are. And I don't want to, depending upon the vote, have any kind of feedback regarding, oh, well, look, they don't care about our administrative staff. That is not true. But I do have some concerns that Mr. Keller brought up regarding what this says and how it says it.
Any additional discussion?
Yeah, I just want to give an opinion. So I'll support if you guys want to join a union. I'm not a union supporter because I'm in automotive, and I've seen the destruction that's come about with the contracts that they've negotiated. It's not public knowledge yet, but there's a lot of things going on in all of the areas that the union had negotiated, large pay increases and things. A lot of those jobs are going away very quickly. So I think that, in my opinion, unions are not there to help you. They're there to control you, which is evidenced by one of the speakers who said that they tell you who to vote for. They encourage you to vote for specific people. I'm not an advocate for being controlled by somebody that I pay. But if you guys want to do that, I'll support you. And again, there's some concerns, but if this is what you guys want, I'll vote for it. The contract is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Blundell.
So I just real quick wanted to mention, again, I know you mentioned this already, Megan, how this was negotiated in good faith with our administration and our administrators. And, you can spin it any way you want, but the fact of the matter is they've brought this to us. It's been agreed upon by our administration. We have a phenomenal set of administrators here. And again, school culture is important. They set the tone for their buildings. They set the tone for their students, their teachers. And for us not to do this is, in my opinion, a slap in the face to them, because everything they do for our staff and our kids. And again, we have a phenomenal group here. I think it does send a message, depending on how you vote. It truly does. That's all I've got to say.
I just want to add one more thing. So in Article 9A, there's a reference to Policy 1410, which based on, I know that's later in the agenda, but the folks covered by this contract no longer utilize 1410. So I think, again, I'm not trying to send a negative message to our admin team, but I'm just looking at black and white contract and take into consideration all stakeholders, which includes our great admin team, our great teachers, our taxpayers, everybody who lives in the community. I have to look at all stakeholders, not just one. So forgive me if I don't vote in favor, but it's because I want to make sure the contract that's in place is the best for the long-term viability of the district, which, again, if there's no district, this contract means nothing to anybody because you have no place to come work. So, but again, with 9A, I think we have a conflicting reference that talks about Policy 1410 in Appendix A, and I think we need to remove the reference to policy 1410. Otherwise, we've created a conflict if we ever change.
Mr. Hughes, is that
Policy.
something that you can address for the
I've
board?
already addressed it. Greg, you sat with me the other day. I told you I'd get with the union. I talked with Tom, their president. He agreed, so we can strike anything. We can strike R established in policy 1410. So you'll be adopting this document that says administrative salaries, see Appendix A, period.
Thank you. I know we talked about it, but the copy that I have still showed it, so I wasn't clear if it made its way into the actual final version.
So it would be established by Appendix A.
Yep.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Mr. Gogoleski,
No.
Mrs. Shaw,
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman,
Yes.
Mr. Keller,
No.
Mr. Costa,
Yes.
Mrs. Blondeel,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, that motion passes. Item 2E, revised policy 1410, which is the administrative salary structure, and 141001, which is compensation and longevity.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approves revised policies 1410 and 1410-01 as presented.
Support? Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, supported by Mr. Costa. Any discussion?
Yep, I'm going to be a broken record again, and I think there was some previous language in there that talked about the formula. It doesn't have to say formula, but I would, again, like to see that implemented into this policy, both 1410 and 1410-01. I also think there's a little bit of an inconsistency on when we talk about PTO days, it's the second to last sentence. It says a maximum of 3 consecutive days may be used without superintendent approval. That's different than what's in the administrator contract. So I want to make sure that our administrative team gets the same benefit that the rest of the staff does. So I think it needs to match 2, or we need to increase it to 3 in the actual contract for the admin team.
That is correct. I think we need to match that up first.
So just food for thought here for discussion. Do we think, though, that perhaps the building component of leadership might be different than some of these leadership positions? So I'm thinking out loud that, if we have a principal out for 3 consecutive days, that's likely going to be something that we should have visibility to and a plan for coverage for, whereas some of these others it might be a little bit different, but when you're in charge of an entire building, that's where my thought process is it's a little bit different. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what we thought. Again, I can be gone, and I got people to cover me on a regular basis. As an elementary principal, they don't. So that was the thinking process. Certainly, if the board wanted it to be consistent with the other one, I can make it too, and I don't think anybody's going to balk at that. Nobody's going to balk at it.
I just want to make sure we have coverage plans in our buildings. If someone's off, that there's a clear delineation for staff of who's in charge. And
That was part of our
who's making a decision till
conversation.
something needs to be made.
So, anyway,
And Greg, do you just want the formula stated out? Is that what you're saying?
he wants
Is that the request?
the 2. What you said.
You're talking about the formula or the PTO, the amount of days that you can be consecutive without?
No. Your first comment, sorry. The formula comment.
Yeah, so it was previously in there, but it got taken out because it's not in the new contract that was presented. So I'm assuming that's why it was removed. But again, for kind of the same reason that I felt it should be in there for the administrative contract, I think it needs to stay in this policy.
Can I point out, Greg, underneath 1410, under Director of Technology steps, it shall be at the discretion of the Board of Education upon the recommendation of the superintendent to modify the recommendation as needed to be fiscally prudent. And we've used that language all these years, that we were fiscally prudent. For instance, last year, the formula would have potentially been like above 4%, if I'm not mistaken, Rachel, or 3.98. And we didn't do that because fiscally prudent said, let's keep it in the same realm as everybody else, including our teachers. So we kept it and we didn't go there. And then under 141001, I believe there's the same thing in there. We'll annually review for market value. So we've tried to cover those without necessarily stipulating the formula as it used to exist.
So are you saying that it would cover that concern?
I think so, yep.
So then there would be a difference between non-1410 and,
There will be, yeah.
Absolutely, yep.
so I mean, I guess in the spirit of equity, I would think we would want everybody to have the same terms and conditions. And then one other thing, I think just more of a typo, I believe the 141001 footnote 1, I think that should be removed now because it's referring to the Director of Community Ed, which I think now falls under 1410.
Actually, what that refers to is Matt's Director of Operations and Transportation. He is on 141001. However, the 1 indicates his compensation shall be at the same rate as the Director of Community Education, which is over on 1410. So it's just a reference. Those are what those reference marks mean, just so you can double check, cross-reference.
I also have another question. So given that these two policies are so connected, I just want to make sure we have a process in place that when one gets brought forward for any updates, say in next year or anything, that it comes as a package because they refer and go back and forth. And so I just want to make sure we have a mechanism in place to do that, because what I would hate to do is update one, not update the other, and so on and so forth. And so just as long as we can live link it back or do what we need to do.
The only time this 141001 would come by itself is if we're adding a position. For instance, if we added the accountant position, well, we would just be adding that position.
understood.
So that's the only time they would come separate.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Gogoleski?
No.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
No.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondil? Yes. And I'm a yes, that motion passes. Item 2F, 92724 FOIA fee appeal.
I move that the Board of Education denies the FOIA appeal received on 9/27/2024 and affirms the FOIA coordinator's determination of the initial estimated fee itemization submitted on 9/24/2024.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Shaw, supported by Mrs. Coleman. Any discussion? Hearing none?
No, I have some, this FOIA and this fee for approximately 1,000 sheets is probably 20-plus times the cost of a group that came in and FOIA'd all of my emails, which amounted to about 20,000 documents, and that was just over $500.
Mr. Gogoleski, have you seen the chart that I asked the team to create?
Which one? No.
There was a concern brought forward in regards to that, and so I
okay.
asked them to standardize via, so there's a chart that they follow, and dependent, and so that's very clear. And I can have Mr. Hughes send you the chart. It might actually be in our email, because, so that we can be very clear that this is where it falls, this is where this falls. And so after that concern was brought forward, I think you or somebody else brought, I think maybe Mrs. Blondil brought that forward to me.
Well, for the sake of equity here, I think there should be a substantial discount to the charge for these documents. $11,300 versus 500 and some for significantly less documents. I mean, it's great that we came up with a chart and a way to do this, but This shows very, I want to say, extreme bias, in my opinion, in terms of who's requesting it, in terms of the people that request things. And I just can't get over this.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment as well. So I feel that there's a lot of conversation surrounding all of this, and I think that we should take this opportunity to be transparent. I was a parent before I got on the board. I was FOIAing things. It felt to me as a parent at the time that me asking for things started to get annoying, or they didn't want me to have it. So charges did come through for things like that. And I just feel like this is an opportunity for us as a board to be transparent with the community, because I don't think it's not being done in malice. I think it's being done because there's a lot of people that want answers. This is their way of looking for answers. We should be an open book. We should supply the community with that transparency that I know some board members are, running on and ran on. And I feel that we should support this community member and provide him with the documents that he's asking for with a heck of a lot lower price than this.
Can I speak to that?
Go ahead.
Thank you for letting me speak to that. First of all, let me read this specifically. First of all, the estimate is based on this sentence. If you read the FOIA, copies of all email correspondence originating from board members or HCS staff in preparation for closed session. Now, we have 500 staff members. I don't know, we've been working with the DOJ for a year prior to closed session, working with our attorneys on giving them stuff. I can't sit here as the superintendent nor Renee as a FOIA coordinator and guess what staff I should look into, since one time at this board table, I actually was handed information, surprised, not handed to me prior to the meeting by both the person that FOIA'd it and a board member, and because we didn't do our due diligence and look at everything. What I gave this particular person an opportunity to do is to recraft the FOIA on specifically who do they want us to look for and what specific dates do they want us to look for, and no redaction and new FOIA was presented. So I would say, Michelle, that we did our best not to interpret, but to read the FOIA as presented. And if you're going to say all HCS staff, then it takes, and we narrowed it down from a half an hour search for each staff member to a 15-minute search for each staff member of our technology department, looking just to make sure for the past year, because we went a year back because we didn't have a date range, just to make sure there was nothing missed so that we wouldn't be sitting at this table and surprised once again that we didn't do our due diligence and search for the FOIA information requested. So I don't think it's fair to say that the district in any way, shape, or form is being mean or not very nice to. The person FOIAing, Mr. Scott, had an opportunity to recraft his FOIA for what he was looking for. That's all I can tell you.
So I guess let me ask you a question. So we know who was in closed session, right? We know the individuals in the closed session. So maybe we can provide him with the name of the individuals that were in the closed session so that he knows, so that if he rewrites it, he can just include those people. Because I don't think that 500 people put in any kind of comment on the closed session, right? It was a closed session. We know who was there. We know what the
He was
purpose
given that
was.
opportunity to revise and he has not?
Correct.
Okay.
So again, I'm asking, sorry, may I finish? Can we provide him with the individuals that were in the closed session so that he can revise his statement? Because I think, like, all encompassing, just like when you and I.
Which closed session?
He's talking about the one where we were in with the DOJ.
The full board?
No, it wasn't the full board. No, it wasn't the full board. It was the one he wants was when I think it was just us with the DOJ, if I'm not mistaken.
No, this was the closed session.
This was the full closed session? Then I misunderstood.
Yeah.
So with the full board, okay, so the full board was in there, but we also had other individuals, right? Travis was in there. There was other people in there with us, can we just give him the list and say, these are the people that were in the closed session? Because I think that, like, you know, when you say like any and all, I think it's just to make sure that nothing's missed, but we know intuitively, like, we know that, like, there's, you know, teachers that were out there that, you know, your staff that didn't have any input to the closed session, right? We know that.
I'm happy to provide the list of individuals in the closed session, but then that's going to have to be
Well, right, and I think as Mr. Hughes pointed out, right, like, we don't want another situation where, oops, look what you missed. I think that they're just reading it as is and providing what was asked for. He's been given an opportunity to revise, and he hasn't yet, which we all know that he should, and he could, and we would get what he's looking for. But to make sure that we are doing the proper job to fulfill a FOIA request as requested, it says all employees. So
I'm happy to submit that. I don't.
Yeah, I mean.
I don't.
Right.
It's just a list of
right.
individuals.
Like anybody, and I guess at the end of the day, if there's somebody that maybe we don't know about that had input with the closed session, you know, it's just a statement he's trying to like capture everybody. I, for one, want to be transparent. So whatever it can take, whatever he wants, I want to provide that to him. I think it's important for us to show the community how much we support transparency. And I understand where you're coming from, that it is a big blanket statement, but let's work with him. And you know, I think that the other thing is that the way that it was, I guess, presented back to him, wasn't there something missing, or like the FOIA coordinator or something? Like, again, I'm going by memory because I didn't read through this again, but I thought it was that he had a problem, that it was the response. Wasn't it? Wasn't there an issue with the response?
He had a response that the FOIA coordinator was not specifically named, and so we changed that and we made sure that we named the FOIA coordinator.
Okay, so you did provide a response with the FOIA. Okay, so
It's in the emails.
that's where I'm coming from with all this. I want to be transparent.
I just can't make sense of the fact that for 20,000 sheets of paper involving my emails, we charge somebody $500. That to me is, I have to think that because of who the requesters are, I think there has to be some sort of favoritism here, because this amount is way drastic, way far more drastic than what it should be.
Mr.
So-
Gogoleski, what would you suggest? So there was a concern brought forward, and I'm sorry, Michelle, I'm calling you out because I think it was a discussion with you and I. So I said, hey, we need a standard process. It needs to be, we need to build, like, one of us who has no idea about anything, like about how this process and how Mr. Usher might search this, and we need a clear process. So I guess my ask of you is to just go through that process with the team when you have the opportunity. If you have suggestions to change it, happy to do that. But I think that if we find an issue, we have to fix it in a standard way.
Yeah. I'm just kind of amazed that there wasn't the question of all the people that may be involved with my emails, and yet we printed off 20,000 copies. I'm just not comfortable with that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Gogoleski?
No.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
No.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondeel?
No.
And I'm a yes, that motion passes. Michelle, I'll get you that list, though. Item 2G, furniture purchase at the high school with 2020 bond dollars.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Director of Operations, approves the high school furniture purchase as presented.
Support.
Motion by Mrs. Coleman, supported by Mr. Costa. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Gogoleski?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondeel?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, that motion passes. Item 3A, the high school cooling tower / exterior door replacement.
I'm going to ask Matt to come up and talk about both of these. Obviously, we had a problem with the high school cooling system 2 years ago, knock on wood, not this year. But the cooling tower is now, 23 years old?
Age of the building, yeah.
So, yep, so it needs to, it's rusting out, so Matt, why don't you talk about that?
Yep, so the high school chiller is a water-cooled chiller, so it uses water to cool itself, which is the cooling tower that sits on the roof. That is original to the building. We've gotten some good life out of it. We did a repair of roughly, don't quote me on it, but probably about $50,000 back in 2017, 2018 to extend its life. But that is underwater all the time, so water's constantly flowing through it, and water causes damage, so here we are. It is currently working, it is currently doing its job, but is starting to leak, so we want to get ahead of the cooling season for 2025 and get this installed as soon as possible. So we are going to use Thermalnetics, hopefully. They are a company that we've worked very well with and have provided great service under our cooperative purchasing program, which meets all the requirements for the state, and so we're looking to go that route. Any questions on the cooling tower?
Is this the pipe that we had an issue with?
No.
Oh, okay.
Nope, completely different. So next time, if you're on the back of the high school where receiving is, if you look up, you're going to see two big, large vessels. That's those. Yep.
So, question, so you've already picked a supplier. Do you have competitive quotes? Like,
So-
were you able to negotiate anything?
The
Like,
cooperative satisfies that, so it's already been pre-bid or actually bid, and so it takes care of that situation.
what, the multiple quotes or the?
Quotes.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
It's already been through a bidding process.
And who vets all that information?
Sourcewell, who is our
Well-
cooperative program.
So we pay Sourcewell to review all the data? Is that how it works?
We enter into the cooperative and pay a portion to be in the cooperative, correct?
Okay. How much,
I don't know.
how does that work? Like, we have a cooperative, that means that we use them, so there's always like a built-in discount? Is that what that is?
There's a cooperative which goes through the bidding process that then there's a level of discount, correct? And Rachel might be able to speak more so to that than I can, but.
Yeah, it's essentially multiple different products ranging from, office supplies to furniture to cooling towers, apparently, which I didn't realize were part of the cooperative purchasing agreement. But they are pre-bid, and you're getting the discount because you're buying in bulk, like you're part of a bulk contract. So they're able to offer more competitive pricing. Sourcewell in particular, we do not pay a fee to be a part of. Omni, we don't pay a fee to be a part of. What's the new one?
Oh, gosh. My Deal, we do pay a fee.
My Deal, we do pay a fee, but it's like $130 a year.
So they collect the bids, they
Yes.
vet everything,
Yes.
and then they say, this is who you're going to use?
No, this is who's available.
Oh, this is, okay,
Yep,
I
so-
understand that,
Yep,
yeah,
so this is
because I
who's
know there's
available.
availability
We
issues.
could go different
Yeah.
routes, based on what product we want to put in.
Yeah.
We're looking to put in the same product that's currently there, a BAC cooling tower. There's many different manufacturers we could look at, but this is one that we look to put in because it fits our current setup.
Okay, and you guys are comfortable, and you've, I mean, whatever knowledge you have of cooling towers, like, it seems like a reasonable cost?
It does. Howell just did the same process last year for their cooling tower. at
You
one of their
benchmarked
buildings.
theirs by,
I did not, 'cause
cost?
it's slightly different size. It was for their middle school. Our high school is much larger.
so there's a
but-
little smaller, you're saying?
Yep, and then it was also last year, and then, as you guys are well aware, prices continue to increase. So, but it does seem pretty reasonable.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Matt, question. So through the bidding service, would the specs all be the same from a warranty standpoint? So like the manufacturer's warranty, are they same regardless of what unit you settle on or choose?
No, they might be a little bit different, but then we run into cost issues with a different type of unit. So BAC usually has the same warranty if they sold it to a Howell or a Brighton or a Hartland type situation. But in terms of manufacturer, it might be a little different if it was a Marley tower versus a BAC tower.
So do we know what I didn't see it. If I missed it, my
I don't
apologies.
know that off the top of
I
my
saw
head.
there was a 30-day labor
Yeah, usually it's about a year.
workmanship warranty. So if we're installing this thing in March, which is what it looked like you were planning to do, then effectively by the time that thing starts, it's already out of warranty?
No,
from a
not
labor
necessarily. We're going to
standpoint?
start actually probably April 1st
Okay.
is the plan. The high school does need cooling.
So we'll have a
quite-
chance
quite
to
quick. Yep, and
vet the
usually it's
thing before it
Usually it's a
gets turned
30 on
loose.
the install for the company, but usually it's a year warranty on the equipment in case there's breakdown or something like that. But any questions on the tower? Exterior doors?
Oh,
Yeah.
someone's phone.
Just curious, is it the same brand that we currently have?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yep. So
Thanks.
all the piping lines up and all that stuff, so we're not really having to go too crazy in the boiler room, refitting things and moving things around.
And we won't
Thank
have to
you.
bring cooling trucks in.
I hope not. That was interesting.
All right.
Exterior doors, same, I think it's the same item, but we're looking to continue our practice of replacing exterior doors and keeping up on that, so we don't get to a point where we have to do a whole bunch all at once. And so the list, I think, was provided in the board agenda, but going around and doing 2 or 3 doors at every building. The doors that have glass do include our safety glass that we've been putting in and updating our buildings, school guard glass, which is unbreakable. And like at the high school, for example, the bus doors, that's one of the ones being selected that really does need to be replaced. It gets used very heavily every day, so.
Can I ask what expectancy you have for life for these new doors? Is that guaranteed to some degree, or?
Not in a school. Nothing's guaranteed with a school, unfortunately. Some of these doors are still pretty original, the buildings over at Lakes and Farms, so we've gotten good life out of those. Some of the doors at the high school are starting to fail just because of wear and tear and the population that's at that building. Estimated at least 20 years on these doors, if not longer, depending on wear and tear. But our maintenance guys have done a great job, but some of the closers are the problem areas that, get used very heavily or doors get kicked or that type of thing, so. But we did select the low bidder. We did vet them. They are very good at what they do, and we feel very confident in Daniel's Glass to provide that service, so.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Matt. Any additional questions on this? Obviously, reach out to Matt before the next board meeting. Item 4A, future meetings. Our next meeting is November 18th, 2024 at 6:30 PM, right here in the Hartland Educational Support Service Center. Item 4B, any informational items?
I'll just put one out there. Just wanted to acknowledge that there was a new student-led chapter, Turning Point USA. So if there are any staff out there that would like to be a sponsor, I think that would be a great opportunity. I know that they've already started the club, but it's after school as opposed to during the school hours, and I think there'd be a great opportunity to increase the participation. So if there's any staff that are willing to support that would be great.
I have one more thing. I was remiss. I've done it several times, but I haven't in a couple board meetings. In the U.S., over 350,000 children are missing. We don't hear about it in the schools. We don't do anything to educate the children of trafficking or, stranger danger anymore like we used to. Maybe we do, and I'm just not familiar with it. But I just feel like if there's one child missing, we shouldn't stop talking about it. And there's over 350,000 children missing in the United States. So I just want to bring that to everyone's attention. Thank you.
Michelle, I think if you have, I'll talk to you offline, but I think, if this is something that we can integrate into to something that we do, perhaps we can talk about what that looks like.
I would love that. I would love that.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Any additional informational items before I go? I do want to just let the public know that we've kicked off our Hartland Adoptive Family Program. You guys will hear this from me ad nauseum until after the holiday season, but we support somewhere between 350 to 400 children right here in our district every year. And so whether you and your family want to adopt a family, or maybe your business or your church group or whatever that may be, there's also several drives around the district. So anything from toilet paper and paper towel to shampoo and conditioner to cleaning supplies. If you have any questions on that or want to be a part of that, want to get more involved, please reach out to me. We look for as many volunteers as we can possibly get. It takes an army to pull this off, and we just want to support the children through the holiday season, and Christmas is a tough one for them. So, all right, this meeting is adjourned at 8:14.